The ITP support associations work collaborative with each other, and the end goal is to support patients wherever they are.
We do that collectively as an alliance. If somebody needs support in one area, we all sort of band together and provide that support in a heartbeat. Welcome to Beyond the Count. I'm founder and CEO of ITP Australia and New Zealand, and your host, Danielle Boyle. This is a space created for the ITP community by the ITP community, where we share real stories, expert insights, and everything in between. Whether you're living with immune thrombocytopenia, supporting someone who is, or just curious about what life looks like beyond the bruises and the blood tests, you're in the right place. So whether you're driving, out for a walk, folding the laundry, or just sitting back and tuning in, let's dive in and go beyond the count. Today, I'm joined by Caroline Kruse, President and CEO of the Platelet Disorder Support Association, or as some of you may know, the PDSA, and Chair and Co-founder of the International ITP Alliance. Caroline has played an integral role in building global connections that support patients, carers, and clinicians. And in today's episode, we explore the origin story of the Alliance, how collaborations have transformed care in more than 30 countries, and why working together is essential to raising awareness and strengthening the voice of patients worldwide. Let's get started. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the International ITP Alliance.
Well, thank you, Danielle, for having me, and thank you for scheduling this recording at a decent time. It's actually 5:30 in the evening, Eastern time, so just about dinner time. What time is it there in Australia?
It's around 7:30 in the morning, so again, decent time. So I think we get a very small window where the both of us are actually functioning and everything is still working and playing nice for now, anyway, at least. Well, thank you so much. So let's sort of take a little bit of a backtrack. So you are the chair for the International ITP Alliance. So can you take us back? So you've been with the International Alliance, obviously, for the duration of its existence, I suppose. Can you take us back a little bit about where did the idea come from? How did it all sort of start? Where did the seed come from?
Well, it actually started back in 2011. And at that time, I had been leading PDSA, which is the Platelet Disorder Support Association, of course, the leading patient advocacy organization in the U.S. and Canada. And I was invited by Shirley Watson, who is the founder of the ITP Support Association in the UK. She had reached out to me and invited me to attend her annual patient convention. And Shirley founded her organization 2 years before PDSA when her young son was diagnosed with ITP. So she invited me to her patient convention. I had never been to England. I had been to Ireland, but I had not traveled. That was about the only European country I had ever been to. And so I went to her convention. It was a wonderful day, wonderful program. And on the last day, she held a separate meeting for several of the European patient advocacy groups. And at that time, there were only a few worldwide. They had been talking about forming a European coalition. And so I said, well, you invited me to the meeting. Why don't we make it international? And they all agreed that was a good idea. And so it just started as a page on the ITP Support Association's website, and it really didn't go anywhere from there. That was about it. And then fast forward to 2015, I was approached by one of our industry partners, the global advocacy director at Novartis. She was at ASH, the Annual Society of Hematology, their annual meeting that they have each December. And she asked me, why isn't there a global coalition. And I said, well, I don't think anybody really wanted to take the lead. I mean, we're all busy enough, right, with our own organizations. And she said, well, if we were able to support you, would you take the lead? And I said, okay. So we thought about it. And then I was corresponding with Shirley in the UK, and one of her trustees, Derek Elston, she put him in charge of the international coalition. And so between the two of us, we decided that PDSA would oversee and develop a website, globalITP.org, and then the ITP Support Association in the UK would hold a meeting. And so that's what we did. So we all met for the first time in 2016. And I think there were maybe 8 groups who attended that first meeting. And it just grew from there.
Well, it's so fascinating to hear those, I suppose, effectively the origin story, right? Is that we talk about and we all collectively work together day in, day out. I don't think there is a week that goes by that I don't speak to somebody in the International ITP Alliance, myself, because we all do. We all collaborate, we all work together. But to understand, I suppose, where things really started, really inspiring to see that as, patient organisations, we do have some beautiful things that we can be doing to support patients, but then globally, collectively, we can also do a little bit of that work as well. So why do you think it's really important for patient organisations and even clinicians to work across borders and to collaborate?
Well, since that first meeting back in 2016, we've now grown the International ITP Alliance. As I mentioned, there were maybe 8 of us that met originally, and we now have 33 patient association groups, advocacy groups from 30 countries, which is really amazing. And one of the reasons that it's so important that we do work across borders is because some of these patient associations have no support. They have no financial support, and they have no resources. They have no educational booklets. And so what the Alliance is able to do is to support them. So for example, PDSA started to translate a lot of our booklets. We now have 45 translated booklets, and it really grew out of the fact that some of these smaller organizations didn't have any resources. So for example, if you go to the PDSA website and you look at our translated booklets page, you'll see booklets in Finnish or Malaysian. And you might say, like, why would they have booklets? It's just such a, obscure language.
It's for those other organizations, right? So
exactly. But the leaders of those organizations came to me and said, I really like this children's book you have. Could you translate it into Dutch, or can you translate it into Finnish? And so we started to do that. There's an ITP patient association, as you know, Danielle, in Argentina, run by Ruben Di Francisco, who has been doing amazing work for his patients and caregivers, but he also had no resources. So we translate many of our booklets into Spanish, but instead of just sending him the booklets, he's actually involved in the process. So we'll do a translation of the booklet. We send it to Ruben. He'll review it for obviously not only medical accuracy, because there are some treatments that are approved in the US that are not approved in Argentina. There are cultural differences. So he'll make some suggestions so that he can share those with his ITP patient community. So that's very important. And I think, as far as the physicians are concerned, the world-renowned ITP experts, they all collaborate together, right?
They do, again,
there are no borders. They collaborate on research, and they attend scientific meetings from around the world. So why shouldn't the patient advocacy organizations collaborate in the same way?
And I remember too, my first international meeting, I suppose, the gang for the first time in Washington, D.C. in 2019. I was so green, so amazingly green walking into that meeting going, I've got a website and we've just had a patient conference. And I think I left with a to-do list and this list of ideas for the Australian and New Zealand audiences. 3 pages worth of ideas. And I'm still sort of slowly chewing, those off little by little. Things like the UK's recently released their ITP and Me teen book. We've adapted that for the Australian audience as well. Yes, guys, it's coming. It's hopefully at the printers today, which is really exciting. But we've been able to adapt that and update that specifically for the Australian and New Zealand teens and kids and families as well. So we all really work and collaborate. I know I talked to a number of the guys going, okay, so yes, you feel free to take the resources and take all of the bits and pieces and translate them. If you want the Word documents or the creative files, let us know. We're happy to share, because let's work smarter, not harder. And when it comes to the clinicians, I know that they all collaborate on, research and those sort of things, but it's especially, I suppose, from the Australians, because we're so far away from absolutely everybody else. If one of our clinicians has got a tricky patient, they'll call and talk to, Dave Cooter or, Nikki Cooper or, some of the ITP leaders globally about patients, and for that second opinion themselves, which I think it's beautiful to see that they all collaborate, they work together, and they're not afraid to ask each other about tricky cases and tricky situations as well. So,
and I think, not only do the physicians collaborate together, but many of the physicians you mentioned, like Dr. Dave Cooter at Harvard and Mass General in the U.S., see the value in patient advocacy groups. Unfortunately, not all physicians do see the value in the work that we do and understand the importance of the patient journey and those quality of life issues that in the past had not been incorporated into clinical trial design. Those clinical endpoints like fatigue and anxiety that are so important. And I know over the years, Dr. Cooter is a world-renowned ITP specialist. He discovered, one of the first to discover TPO in his lab that led to the development of these new drugs to treat ITP. But whenever he travels the world, if he meets with a patient association, he tells them about the International ITP Alliance, or he'll make an introduction to me and say, oh, you have to talk to Caroline Kruse, or he'll email me and say, I met so-and-so in China, and they have a wonderful patient association, and the two of you should connect. So I'm really appreciative of the fact that many of these physicians do see the value in patient advocacy organizations and try to make those connections. And you also mentioned the to-do list. Originally we started meeting, the International ITP Alliance members started meeting once a year. And then it was like, that wasn't enough. We have to meet at least twice a year, which is still not enough. It's still not enough. And as you mentioned, we walk away with a to-do list, a couple pages long. But I really appreciate the fact that we're not competitive with each other, we're collaborative with each other. And the end goal is to support patients wherever they are. And so if we can help other patients, we share our resources, we share ideas with each other, because in the end, that's what it's all about.
And like a lot of our international and a lot of the clinicians are, to be able to see that and the way that they interact with people, regardless of them being a clinician, a researcher, a patient advocate, they're just amazing humans and absolutely glorious humans. So, and again, part of the wider ITP community. If they're on side as well, it just makes it so much easier for us too, which is excellent.
Well, and they go to a lot of scientific and medical meetings, and they've all expressed to me on many occasions that our ITP patient conference is their favorite meeting of the year. I always say my biggest challenge when we're developing the agenda for our 3-day meeting is figuring out who's going to present what, because they all want to come and attend the conference. And of course, I can't say no to anyone. So we have to figure out what they're going to do and present, but that's okay. And then, of course, they always, after their presentation, patients go up to the stage to talk with them, and they're always willing and so generous of their time to stand there and talk with patients. And we have these small group breakout sessions where they're more than willing to talk with patients about their experience. And, because unfortunately, a lot of patients, especially patients who live in more remote areas, are unable to see an expert in their disease. And I always remember Dr. Terry Gernsheimer from Seattle, who's on our medical advisory board. I know is on your medical advisory board. Yeah. She said the one time, I'm a hematologist, I'm a hemonc. But if you got leukemia, I'm not the person you want to see. I'm an expert in ITP. And so I'm the person you want to see if you have ITP. And so it's really important to get the proper diagnosis, the proper care, the proper treatment, and to know about all the treatments that are available. I think that's the other challenge. A lot of hematologists who aren't well versed in ITP or maybe see only a few patients a year aren't aware or up to date, right, on the guidelines, on the treatment guidelines, and all of the treatments that are available.
And the latest developments as well. So we've had such a massive change here in Australia and New Zealand recently. Australia is starting to catch up, which is excellent. And now we're advocating in New Zealand as well for those, for protocols, etc., to catch up. But things change very quickly, especially in the ITP space at the moment. Like the number of clinical trials that are out there at the moment, and I think we're sitting at about 11 and that's just Australia. Australia is an extremely small population, so comparatively, to be able to have that many clinical trials in Australia, but I know all of the work that's happening globally as well, as you do. But to be able to keep up to date with who's doing what, where, and who, and these are the new updates, these are the new ideas, combination therapies, all of the little tricky nuances when it comes to treating ITP and working with people living with ITP. Not every clinician is going to know that. And that's the importance of second opinions as well, right? So, and having, I know that the PDSA hosts their breakfast meeting at ASH every year. We're doing something similar at our annual hematology conference this year, and we did last year as well with such great response. But it's open for all clinicians. We don't have borders. If you want to come on over, let's help you and let's support you and give you the information and the updates and have the likes of Dave Cuda sitting in your back pocket going, here you go, these are the elements, or Rob Bird or Phil, or we've all got our own international medical advisors as well, which is excellent.
Thanks to our sponsor Sobi for their ongoing support of ITP Australia and New Zealand and our podcast Beyond the Count.
So looking back at the Alliance, what are some of the most meaningful or achievements, or what are some of the things that you look back at and go, whoa, that's amazing? You touched on I Wish, which was monumental.
But just seeing the work that these smaller groups are now doing that started as small groups. I think about Marilia in Brazil. She's a one-man band down in Brazil, and she's meeting with their government and trying to get approval for treatments and access. And she's speaking at rare disease events. And none of that would have been possible. She's an ITP patient. She has a very dramatic story that she has shared, multiple times with people. But to see how far she's come is truly amazing. And I mentioned Ruben, and there are other patient advocacy groups, ITP patient advocacy groups. And I think we just all inspire each other to be better and to grow. And, there's not one thing I can point to and say, oh, that was amazing. It's all amazing. And it's just inspiring to see how we are all able to inspire each other. And of course, we just, we ended September with Global ITP Awareness Week. And back in 2010, PDSA established the month of September as ITP Awareness Month. And it took about a year to get that designation. So you have to apply to the U.S. Health Observance Calendar to get that designation. And one of the reasons is that you have to have information on your website. It's kind of funny, Danielle. One of the things we had to do is to say, how can you prevent ITP? Well, you can't really prevent ITP.
Sure, we can prevent it.
Exactly. So, we had to create, some content that talked about like healthy living, healthy eating. But of course, we all know, right, that's not going to prevent ITP. But at any rate, after working on this for about a year and building out the content on our website, pdsa.org, we were able to receive that designation. We established the last week of the month as Global ITP Awareness Week. And it's just grown from there. It's not just members of the International ITP Alliance who join in all of this. We see other people, even physicians from countries. I remember the one year in Saudi Arabia, there was a group of lab workers who all dressed in the traditional garb, and it was all purple, though, beautiful purple saris and costumes. And they sent us a photo of them celebrating Sport Purple for Platelets Day, which is always the last Friday of the month. And of course, you've been very involved, having a marketing background. You've been very involved in developing a lot of the content, which you might want to talk a little bit more about that, because that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, no, I've really, as a marketer myself, like I like to test and push the boundaries and test the waters. Like the last couple of years, we've tried, planking for platelets. It didn't get the traction that I was hoping, but that's completely fine. But Light Up for ITP has done so amazingly well, and I have a sneaking suspicion that we may have got to 250, if not 300 locations globally, if not more, this year for Awareness Week. I think that and we're talking about light up structures in countries that have never participated before and never had any traction. I know Barbara in Italy had a couple of patients who were able to assist with getting locations lit purple. I know the US, you guys, pulled off so many amazing locations as well this year. But these things take time, right? So you plant the seed, and it's not, okay, we're going to do this year and sort of you smash it out. We've been working on, things like the Light Up for ITP for like 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, and it's not just the patient advocacy groups. It's us empowering our patients. We had patients go to those locations and take photos, and patients just dressing purple, whether that's at work or at school, and raising awareness. I mean, that's the key, right? That's what it's all about, just raising awareness in the general public, because it is a rare disease and a lot of people have never heard of it before, but then also empowering the patient who has it, to get up there and talk about their illness and about the disease, and what it's personally like for them to go through it. And while it's difficult, it's also a celebration, I guess. You wouldn't think of calling it a celebration, but again, it's very empowering to the patients to be able to share their stories and raise awareness.
Exactly. And, it gives that level of visibility for those of us living with an invisible disease, right? So I remember this year we managed to get Eden Park in New Zealand lit up purple. And it is the pinnacle sporting arena in all of New Zealand. If you are anywhere in New Zealand, you know about Eden Park. And because Eden Park then posted on their social media pages about them lining up for ITP Awareness Week, the amount of ITP patients that saw the visibility, they felt included. They felt seen, and it was some of the messages we were getting back from patients was just so moving, so absolutely moving. And we've got a number of patients now sharing stories, and everyone sort of banding together and coming together and supporting and lifting each other up, which I think is just... But that comes back to the International Alliance as well. We do that collectively as an alliance, both personally and as organisations. If somebody needs support in one area, we all sort of band together and provide that support in a heartbeat. I'm truly thankful to have the International ITP Alliance as part of and being part of the Alliance and being brought in such an early on, because I think that ITP ANZ would be a vastly different organisation if I hadn't been.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned clinical trials earlier, and when I started with PDSA and when I was diagnosed with ITP, some 25 years ago, there were only a few treatments. I mean, there was a splenectomy, high doses of steroids, corticosteroids that you were left on for months and even years for many patients, and which have, of course, a lot of long-term and very detrimental side effects. And we worked with 2 or 3 pharmaceutical companies to support our programs. And as I mentioned, patients weren't really brought into research and development until the treatment was approved. And the past couple of years, I probably worked with 20 companies. So in that respect, we're in a very fortunate place right now that so many treatments are being developed for ITP. Unfortunately, for many patients, nothing works. We're still searching, right, for that elusive cure, or as I always say, short of a cure. If we could identify what caused, ITP is such a personalized, individualized disease. If we could identify what caused your ITP, Danielle, versus what caused my ITP, then we could have targeted therapies so that patients don't have to cycle on and off of treatments for years and suffer with some of the detrimental side effects of some of these treatments. Again, on the other hand, we're very fortunate that there are so many treatments and that there are so many clinical trials worldwide. So one of the roles that the International ITP Alliance members serve is that when we do meet someone from a pharmaceutical company that's developing an ITP treatment, they want to connect with patients early and often, and they want to connect with the patient advocacy groups in those countries because there are clinical trials worldwide. So we, the core members of the International ITP Alliance often will connect with these folks and then make introductions to the other patient advocacy groups so that they can educate them about the clinical trials and reach patients in other countries. So that's another really important role that we all serve within the Alliance.
It's really refreshing to see that these industry partners, are actually taking on board our feedback and feedback that that we've all provided over the years. I think the feedback from industry partners is that, wow, like, you guys really know your stuff. You work really, really well together as well. Like you're coming back to the collaborating, I don't have all the answers, but collectively we've got a good chunk of all of the answers. And we all know, we talk to patients all the time. So having us in the room, providing feedback, making suggestions, is really beneficial for them as well, because ultimately it's only going to be beneficial for patients in the outset and in the end.
And it's been so rewarding to see the impact that we've had on research. I remember being at ASH last year, and I know you were at ASH, and Barbara from Italy and Marilia from Brazil, and we were at an ITP symposium. And again, these are scientific meetings, scientific presentations with hematologists from all over the world. And up on the screen, there were several hematologists, ITP experts presenting this cutting edge research. And they put a slide on the screen, and there were several thousand people in the room. And you looked at it, and we were all authors on that research, right? And we all looked at each other like, wow, our names are up there, right? Is, equally important as physicians.
Yeah, exactly. So, and to give everyone a sense of an idea as to how many people attend ASH, we're talking 40,000 people. Like, it's not a small conference. It is Comic-Con times 3. Like, it's absolutely huge. To have, us all included in that research and then presented and showcased to, all of those clinicians was mind-blowing. It was really mind-blowing. And actually having that research amongst the clinicians, and they come past, they ask questions, and they're actually really engaged, and they want to learn. They want to hear from the patient side as well, which is vastly different to 10 years ago compared to 20 years ago, compared to, 30 years ago. So those changes in the way clinicians are, I suppose, their empathy levels and the way that they're thinking about ITP is down to the International ITP Alliance as well. And it's because we are a loud bunch. Let's not be shy about that. We're not quiet. We're definitely not going to sit in the corner and be quiet about things. I think you put, Barbara, Marilia and I in a room and, that's it. It's all over. But, we, as a collective, we are a very loud voice and we're only getting louder.
Loud and passionate, I will include. We're very passionate. So that's really important. But PDSA's mission was always to support and educate patients. And of course, advocacy and research is part of the 4 pillars of our mission statement. But we really hadn't done anything in the realm of research until, I would say, around 2016, when we established our ITP Natural History Study Patient Registry. But it's really been between the registry, I wish, and then working with industry, I hadn't been an author on any publications prior to 2016, and now I'm an author on 40 publications, mostly focusing on quality of life. But again, alongside these world-renowned ITP researchers. And you mentioned the ITP breakfast at ASH. I mean, that started out more than 20 years ago as just a group of doctors, sitting in a circle in a room, talking about the most cutting edge ITP research. And over the years, that meeting has grown, and we're all recognized, right, for the work that we do and the collaboration that we provide within the scientific community.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good to see that voice is being heard and it's being folded through absolutely everything. That all of these elements now are that they go hand in hand when it comes to ITP, and these things are all thought of when somebody is either diagnosed with ITP or from a clinician perspective. And, our websites, we are the single source of truth because, not every clinician can jump onto a website and read every single paper or every single piece of research. They utilise us for some of that education and to be informed and to stay on top of different things as well. So when we talk about the patient community, that they are our number one, audience. They're the people that we support, advocate for, and provide information to. But it doesn't mean that we don't then also support, clinicians and researchers and haematologists and provide them with some support and some information as well, and connect patients directly to the specialists and all the different elements that we all work towards. But if we're all singing the same tune, working with industry partners, clinicians and patients, we've got the whole picture, all talking to all of them collectively.
And I always say that many of the patient advocacy organizations' websites have the most up-to-date, robust information you can find anywhere, not just for patients and caregivers, but for healthcare professionals.
Exactly. And, these a lot of the tools, they can use to help educate patients. In saying that, I think the guidelines, the treatment guidelines that we have here in Australia and New Zealand, the amount of times that patients have actually walked in with a copy of the guidelines from our website and gone, these are the guidelines, you can now stop giving me XYZ treatment. I'd like to start talking about this particular treatment option or these options as well, because steroids are no longer working, or I don't want to be on them anymore because my quality of life is vastly different. And they get that information from us. They pass those on to their clinicians. So those clinicians, they don't know. They're not going to sit there Googling every single disease because it's not the only thing that they're working on, and they're time poor as well. So having those websites as updated as we possibly can is really important. And, again, we all share, we all collaborate. The PDSA website, the UK website, our website, they can all help to inform clinicians. And again, coming back to that single source of truth.
Yeah, I remember a number of years ago, a patient contacted us and said that she was suffering from debilitating fatigue with her ITP, and she discussed it with her hematologist, and he said, that has nothing to do with your ITP. And then she read our newsletter, and she read an article about fatigue and ITP, and she took it into her physician, and she said, here you go, here's this article. And the article was written, at first he said, well, who wrote this? Is this a patient or a patient advocacy organization? And she said, no, it was written by one of their medical advisors. It was written by a physician. So, of course, that holds a lot more weight. And, thanks to our newsletter. And we've had patients tell us the same about treatment, where a physician didn't tell that patient about some of the newer treatments or an alternative treatment, and they read about it in our newsletter or on our website, and then printed it off and took it into their physician and said, okay, tell me more about this specific treatment.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's the power of the people, right? Having that resource in each of the countries, but globally as well, I think is, really important.
Well, working together makes it possible to create these shared resources, to raise awareness and strengthen the patient voice globally. And that's what we're doing.
Exactly. And we're starting to see that I suppose that we're carrying a lot more weight now than what we were, 10, 15 years ago, is because we are all working collectively, and the work that we do really intertwines with it, all the different stakeholders. And the more that we can work together with each of the stakeholders collaboratively, it's only going to benefit the patient. I think we'll leave it there. We could absolutely talk all day. Thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Count and for joining us so late for you. I think it's almost time for dinner. Hopefully you've got dinner sorted.
Yeah, I was going to say perfect way to end the episode, Danielle. And as you mentioned, we could talk for hours, but you need to start your day and I need to go to bed. So we're winding down. Go to dinner and have some dinner and go to bed. But it's always a joy to talk with you. And I really appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Thank you so much for joining me and joining all of our listeners and for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your wisdom as well. Thank you so much. Wow, what a fabulous interview. Thank you so much, Caroline. I hope you all got a lot out of today's episode. I know I did. Before we wrap up, here are 4 key takeaways from our conversation with Caroline. Number 1, global collaboration strengthens patient support. The International ITP Alliance connects organisations across more than 30 countries, making it easier to share resources, raise awareness, and support patients no matter where they live. Number 2, you are supported wherever you are in the world. Whether you're at home or travelling abroad, the Alliance's global network can help connect you to care. If you experience ITP symptoms, for example, in another country without a local patient group, one of the Alliance members is more than likely to be able to point you in the right direction to trusted contacts, clinicians, or even resources. Number 3, small conversations can lead to really big change. Whether you're a patient, carer, or clinician, sharing our story and connections with others can spark new ideas, improve care, and build a stronger global community. Number 4, you can help build support in your region. If you live in a country without a patient association or patient group, reach out to the International ITP Alliance via globalITP.org. We can help you start one and connect you with others doing similar work. A huge thank you to Caroline Kruse for joining us on Beyond the Count. Your leadership, warmth, and dedication to the global ITP community continues to inspire each and every one of us. Thank you for reminding us that small conversations can lead to big change, and together, we are so much stronger. If you're looking for support, connection, or information, visit itpanz.org.au. You'll find The Count, our quarterly magazine, patient stories, treatment information sheets, clinical guidelines, and a wide range of resources designed to help you and your family feel informed and supported. Most importantly, you'll know that you're not alone. There's a whole community here just waiting for you. If this episode was helpful, please share it with others in the ITP community and leave us a review on your podcast platform. It helps more people find Beyond the Count. We've got more expert conversations, patient stories, and more coming soon. So hit the follow or subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for listening as we go beyond the count together.